6. Incline your ear, Lord, and answer me, for I am poor and oppressed. Preserve my life, for I am devoted. Save your servant who trusts in you. You are my God. Be gracious to me, Lord. To you I call all the day. Gladden the soul of your servant. To you, Lord, I lift up my soul. Lord, you are good and forgiving, most merciful to all who call on you. Lord, hear my prayer. Listen to my cry for help. On the day of my distress I will call to you, for you will answer me. No one among the gods can equal you, O Lord, nor can their deeds compare with yours. All the nations you have made shall come to bow before you, Lord, and give honor to your name. For you are great and do wondrous deeds, and you alone are God. Teach me, Lord, your way, that I may walk in your truth, single-hearted and revering your name. I will praise you with all my heart, glorify your name forever, Lord my God. Your mercy to me is great. You have rescued me from the depths of Sheol. O God, the arrogant have risen against me. A ruthless band has sought my life. To you they pay no heed, but you, Lord, are a compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in mercy, kindness, and truth. Turn to me, be gracious to me. Give your strength to your servant. Save the son of your handmaid. Give me a sign of your favor. Make my enemies see to their confusion that you, Lord, help and comfort me. The psalmist admits no guilt, speaks of no sin that he has committed that would have brought about these stressful circumstances, the difficult circumstances from which the psalmist is asking to be released. The psalm has an interesting. It's one of the two places in Psalms where we find this reference. Give your strength to your servant. Save the son of your handmaid. The son of your handmaid. What does that sound like? What did the Blessed Mother call herself? Gabriel appeared to her and said, you will bear a son, and he will be great. The Lord will give him the throne of his father David, and of his kingdom there will be no end. He will save his people from their sins. And Mary said, behold the handmaid of the Lord. Let it be done to me according to your will. So this is one of two references throughout all of the Psalms to the son of your handmaid. The other in Psalm 116 we'll see later. But just again to think that the Psalms multivalent, applicable to the situation of the psalmist, who was writing in particular circumstances in Israel hundreds and hundreds of years before Christ, 1,000 years before Christ in the case of King David, but also applicable to all the Jewish people down through to the time of Christ and all the Jewish and Christian people since. That the Psalms speak to all of us deeply. At various points in our lives, various Psalms have a deep resonance. And this Psalm is for those who want to trust in the Lord, who have faith that they can trust in the Lord, and who are turning to the Lord, who have not despaired and are not, well, they're demanding a little bit. And I just, as I say, there's something for us to learn in the way that the psalmists keep coming at Lord with imperatives. You know, yes, they're asking him, but they're asking him with such confidence that it almost comes across like a demand. Incline your ear and answer me. All right? The psalmist doesn't say, Lord, I would like it if you would. He says, do this. So again, that takes huge trust in you know, that God is holding us just like this, right? That the psalmist believes in the mercy and the love of God. He's just like that around us. Jesus in the desert with us. Let me whisper to you. And if you're in a place where it's hard for you to hear that whisper, in a place where it's hard for you to be alone with him because you're afraid to let go of the things you have to let go of to go into the desert with him, that you can turn to him and say, all right, incline your ear. Be merciful. Help me because I'm afraid. Because I'm suffering. Because it has not felt like you've been near. And yet the Lord does draw near here in Psalm 86. He draws near, and the psalmist is comforted. And it's a joyful psalm. It's a hopeful psalm in the midst of stress, in the midst of difficulty. There's joy and there's hope because the psalmist trusts in the love, the mercy, and the power of God. The psalmist says something else too, and I'm going to go ahead and mention this here because we need to say it at some point or another, that there is no God like you, O Lord. We see this in the Psalms several places, and it's interesting that it almost makes it sound like the psalmist believes in the gods of the pagans. It's interesting because the Jewish people in their earliest, their earliest generations may have been what we would call henotheists or monolaters, meaning they are people who believed in the God who is God, and yet they may have believed, in their earliest generations, they may have believed that the gods of the Hittites, the gods of the Greeks, the gods of the Egyptians and the Babylonians also had real existence. More than likely possibility that the most remote of our Jewish ancestors had a primitive understanding that the gods of the other nations existed too, but that the Jewish God was the God. He was the God among the gods, not a first among equals, but the God above the other gods and goddesses. And so the reference to the other gods, none among the gods can equal you, O Lord, is a reference to the possibility that even at the time of the writing of the Psalms, there may still have been some belief, some primitive holdover belief among some of the Jewish people that the other gods had a real existence. Interesting too, because many Catholic, Protestant, and Orthodox thinkers and teachers and clergy would probably tell you that, well, actually, those gods may have had something of a real existence. No offense to the Hittites or to the Egyptians or to the Carthaginians or anybody else from the ancient world, but it's theorized that perhaps some of the worship of those gods was actually demon worship, that demons set themselves up as gods for the peoples. Not that the people were demonic themselves, but that the sacrifices being made in particular, for instance, if there was human sacrifice, that this was actually inspired by a demonic force behind the understanding of the god or the goddess in question, particularly where there was, for instance, human sacrifice. But that's, again, a speculation, and good, strong, steady speculation about the gods of the ancient world, that they may have had utterly no existence whatsoever, or some of it may have been demon-inspired. In any event, some of the Jewish people early on may have believed in the real existence of the gods of the Hittites, the Canaanites, the Jebusites, the Midianites, and so forth. Psalm 88, the psalm which does not turn around, the psalm which, it's called here, the title given here in this translation of Scripture, a despairing lament. All right? Despairing is the word here. Psalm 88 does not turn around. Psalm 88 does not have a place where the anguish of the psalmist is relieved by hope or by the actual action of God. Lord, the God of my salvation, I call out by day. At night I cry aloud in your presence. Let my prayer come before you. Incline your ear to my cry. For my soul is filled with troubles. My life draws near to Sheol. I am reckoned with those who go down to the pit. I am like a warrior without strength. My couch is among the dead, like the slain who lie in the grave. You remember them no more. They are cut off from your influence. You plunge me into the bottom of the pit, into the darkness of the abyss. Your wrath lies heavy upon me. All your waves crash over me. Because of you, my acquaintances shun me. You make me loathsome to them. Caged in, I cannot escape. My eyes grow dim from trouble. All day I call on you, Lord. I stretch out my hands to you. Do you work wonders for the dead? Do the shades arise and praise you? Is your mercy proclaimed in the grave, your faithfulness among those who have perished? Are your marvels declared in the darkness, your righteous deeds in the land of oblivion? But I cry out to you, Lord, In the morning my prayer comes before you. Why do you reject my soul, Lord, and hide your face from me? I have been mortally afflicted since youth. I have borne terrors, and I am made numb. Your wrath has swept over me. Your terrors have destroyed me. All day they surge round like a flood. From every side they encircle me. Because of you, friend and neighbor shun me. My only friend is darkness. This psalm, of course, can be attributed to one of the Jewish kings, maybe who experienced defeat in battle, to a Jewish priest who's going through a really difficult time, to a psalmist, to the writer of the psalm itself, whoever he or she may have been. This psalm may be attributed to local circumstances and a personal situation. But it's hard not to associate this psalm with the Passion of the Lord. It's not one of the penitential psalms, all right? It's not one of the penitential psalms. And here's one way we know. Although the psalmist speaks of your wrath washing over me, that's what the psalmist is experiencing. The wrath of God, the rejection of God, God going off and leaving the psalmist to these circumstances in which the psalmist feels there is, well, caged in, there's no escape. It's the psalmist acknowledges the wrath of God, but in no place does the psalmist say, I have sinned. I deserve this. Relent. The psalmist says relent, all right, but the psalmist does not say, I deserve this. Nor does the psalmist protest his innocence. Sort of leaves the whole question aside. This is what the psalmist tells us about his circumstances, that they appear to have been brought on because the psalmist was standing with God. Listen, because of you, my acquaintances shun me. You make me loathsome to them. Because of you, all right? Why do you reject my soul, O Lord, and hide your face from me? I have been mortally afflicted since youth. I have borne your terrors. I have borne your terrors, and I am made numb. Your wrath has swept over me. Your terrors have destroyed me. Because of you, friend and neighbor shun me, and my only friend is darkness. Darkness could be understood here almost as like a longing for death. The one way out for the psalmist is death. This is an almost suicidal despair, all right? And because of you, Lord, I am suffering these things. So this is more than just innocent suffering. This is actually the persecution of the righteous. And this sounds, doesn't it, like the suffering of our Lord. So Psalm 88 can be associated with the Christ who cries from the cross, my God, why have you abandoned me? But of course, the psalm even more associated with that cry is Psalm 22, which Jesus is quoting when he cries out, why have you abandoned me? We'll look at Psalm 22 later. But Psalm 88, your wrath lies heavy upon me. All your waves crash over me. It's another place also where the psalmist talks about the flood, the torrents that are crashing over him. What's this business of that? We've heard this several times now in the Psalms, that deep waters are engulfing me. Your waves are crashing over me. The torrents threaten me. The flood will reach me. What's going on with that? Deep waters, flood waters, the waters of the sea, to the ancients and in all cultures, but in particular, we see it in the Psalms and we also see it in the prophets, a metaphor for chaos, a metaphor for a situation of a despairing situation, a situation of such trouble that there's no foothold. And the psalmist must call out to God, rescue me from the depths. Rescue me from the miry deep in which there is no foothold. Your torrents crash over me. Your waves crash over me. I am sunk deep in the waters of despair. The flood is threatening me. Where this comes from, I think, this imagery, I think it's from the flood of Noah. Now, this is interesting because I believe in a lot of the, not all, but a lot of the scientific account of how life has come about on Earth. I don't believe in all of it, but I believe in a lot of it, including the belief that the human race probably originated in one place at one time, We call it the Garden of Eden, right? And it doesn't matter if it was a man and a woman, just like it says at the beginning of Genesis, or if Genesis is to be understood metaphorically. The fact is, God created man, he created, woman he created in God's image. In our image, let us remember, God says, Genesis 1:26, let us create man in our image, the plurality of the Godhead right there, God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit are at work in creation. Let us create man and woman in our image. All right? That when that creation happened, most scientists, anthropologists, and others who study the development of human life on this planet say it happened in one place at once, not all over the world at once. What logically follows from this is that at one point the entire human race was probably pretty closely connected. The human tribe probably traveled together to some extent, and may at one point most human beings, or even all human beings on Earth, Cro-Magnon man, early modern humans, that's what science calls them, lived in one place before branching out all over the world. And it may have been, who knows, this is just speculation, but I'm saying that we don't have to reject the flood of Noah because some people who are scientific laugh at it. It is true there is no universal flood layer around the earth, all right? I mean, geologists have looked for it. There's no evidence of a worldwide flood, but there wouldn't have to be if the entire human race was in one place at one time. Maybe just thousands of people or tens of thousands of people, but the human tribes staying relatively close together, and that place was flooded. Just speculation, just speculation. A local flood that was disastrous to the however many thousands or tens or hundreds of thousands of human beings at that time inherited the planet. Just putting it out there for speculation to try to suggest that faith and science, faith and reason are not opposed, all right? And don't let anybody tell you they are. All right. So I think that these references to the waters, the floodwaters, the torrents, the raging, and deep, miry grave of water that the psalmist feels himself sinking into, I think it comes from an ancient, primitive, very remote human racial memory. A memory of the entire, it explains why we've got Chinese, Peruvian, and Aboriginal Australian stories of the flood that match up a whole lot with the story we encounter in Genesis. So just some speculation there, but we can leave the speculation aside. If it's helpful, great. If it's not, you can ignore it because Father Jim is just speculating. But it's to go somewhere with this business because we see it again and again and again in the Psalms. When the psalmist is in trouble, the image that is usually brought to mind is, draw me from the deep, Lord. Save me from the deep. It's about to overwhelm me. So water, chaos, forces of destruction. All right? I think primitive racial memories from an original, I might even almost say an aboriginal flood, inundation. All right, Psalm 88 never turns around. Psalm 88 ends with, because of you. Remember, because of you, Lord. I'm suffering because of you. Friend and neighbor shun me, and my only friend is darkness. A unique psalm, Psalm 88. As I said, there's no place that the human heart can go that the Psalms cannot follow. And if they can follow us there, they can lead us out. All right? So we're going to look at some Psalms that tell us to trust in God in times of difficulty, because the Psalms can take us to a dark place. They can also lead us out of that dark place. There are 4 Psalms. I'm not going to read all of them because it just takes too long. But 4 Psalms that really recall a very Lenten set of events that we think of during Lent. We're reading the book of Exodus in the Liturgy of the Hours. During Lent, we hear the story of Exodus at the Vigil Mass on Holy Saturday night, and the entire experience of the Jewish people, their liberation from Egypt, the 10 plagues on Egypt, their liberation through water. Saved through water. Water here, a saving element, not a destructive element. The Jews safely pass through the Red Sea, get to the other side, their enemies destroyed in the depths, and then the Jews do their long period in the desert where God speaks to them, reminds them of how much He loves them, looks for their love in return. That desert journey, 40 years, where Jesus gets His 40 days from, where we get our 40 days from, these particular 4 Psalms talk about those great events. And these events are very Lenten in nature. And the Psalms are Psalm 105, 106, 135, and 136. All right, and I'm not going to read them because it takes too long, but it would not be right to do this series for a Lenten retreat on the Psalms without mentioning these 4 Psalms, 105, 106, 135, and 136, where the great saving events of the Passover, of the exodus from Egypt, of the passage through the Red Sea, of the long wandering in the desert when God sent manna to feed his people, overran the camp with quail and so forth, brought water forth from the rock and led his people and taught his people and purified his people in the desert, and then brought them into the Holy Land, the Promised Land. This is very Lenten. These Psalms are very Lenten in their themes, and they tell the Jewish people, they remind the Jewish people of the great things that God has done for them. And they tell them, don't forget his many benefits to you. Do not forget his blessings. Rejoice in the God who has done this for you. Remember how with a strong arm he brought our ancestors out of Egypt. And he will take care of us now too. Trust, trust. Psalms 105, 106, 135, and 136. We're going to go on to Psalms again. When Psalm 88 took us to a place of despair, let's look at some Psalms that take us to a place of great hope and even, in fact, of great happiness, which will end this part of the series. Psalm 121 is almost it's almost a hymn to reliance on God. So let's listen to Psalm 121. I raise my eyes toward the mountains, from whence shall come my help. My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to slip or your guardian to sleep. Behold, the guardian of Israel never slumbers or sleeps. The Lord is your guardian. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. The Lord will guard you from all evil. He will guard your soul. The Lord will guard your coming and going, both now and forever. Psalm 121, a psalm, really almost an invitation to pilgrimage. You know, come with the Lord, he will guard you. He won't allow your foot to strike a stone. He won't allow you to slip. The sun won't strike you in its heat, nor will you be troubled by the darkness of the night. Come away with the Lord into the desert. Trust him. All right, so it's almost an invitation to what? To pilgrimage. Pilgrimage is it's a Lenten theme. It's a theme really for the entire Christian life. Our lives are pilgrimages. From the moment of your conception to the moment of your death, you are on pilgrimage back to the Promised Land, the land that we were made for, the land of the everlasting hills and the everlasting joy. But this psalm invites us to think of Lent as a pilgrimage, and Psalm 122 does as well. Psalm 122 actually is a pilgrim's prayer, a pilgrim who has come to Jerusalem and who is marveling and rejoicing in the city of the Lord. All right, so this is what the journey to the desert is all about, is to discover what the psalmist here in 122 is inviting us to discover. I rejoiced when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. And now our feet are standing within your gates, Jerusalem. Jerusalem built as a city, walled round about, where the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord. As it was decreed for Israel to give thanks to the name of the Lord, there are the thrones of justice, the thrones of the house of David. For the peace of Jerusalem pray. May those who love you prosper. May peace be within your ramparts, prosperity within your towers. For the sake of my brothers and friends, I say, peace be with you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I pray for your good. All right, so a pilgrim rejoicing with another pilgrim in Jerusalem. Our journey into the desert is a pilgrimage, and we want to discover in it the joy that and the security that the psalmists of Psalm 121 and 122 express to us. All right, this theme of joy and of security and of reliance on the Lord is carried on in Psalms 123, Psalm 124, Psalm 125, Psalm 126. I want to read Psalm 126, all right? These Psalms are joyful Psalms. They are Psalms that say, we trusted in the Lord and He brought us through to safety, all right? Had it not been for the Lord, I'll read Psalm 126 in just a minute, all right? I want to read this verse, Psalm 124, listen, all right? Had not the Lord been with us, let Israel say, had not the Lord been with us when people rose against us, they would have swallowed us alive, for their fury blazed against us. Then the waters would have engulfed us, the torrent overwhelmed us, then seething water would have drowned us. Blessed is the Lord who did not leave us to be torn by their teeth. We escaped with our lives like a bird from the fowler's snare. So Psalm 124 goes on in that same vein. Psalm 124, we relied on the Lord and He brought us safely through the difficult time. Listen to Psalm 126. You know this psalm, and we'll close this part of the talk with this beautiful psalm. Psalm 126, famous song. A Protestant hymn from the 19th century, they shall come rejoicing, bringing in their sheaves, comes straight from Psalm 126. When the Lord restored the captives of Zion, we thought we were dreaming. Then our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues sang for joy. Then it was said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us. Oh, how happy we were. Restore our captives, Lord, like the dry stream beds of the Negev. Those who sow in tears will reap with cries of joy. Those who go forth weeping, carrying sacks of seed, will return with cries of joy, carrying their sheaves. Psalm 126, trust in the Lord. Go into the desert with Him. Go through the difficult time with Him. Go through the threatening waters with Him, trusting in Him. The Lord is there, and He will deliver on His promises. His promises are great, and He will deliver on them. He wants our trust in that.